should you break your leg in the sewers when you escape? Quite simple question, right? Because when you go from that top level, you can either dive all the way down and at the bottom break your leg, have a little animation play, and then continue on. Or you can catch yourself on the railing and then delay yourself falling down. And when you land at the bottom, you have not broken your leg and can move immediately, but you will catch yourself. And the question, of course, is that time difference important? Should you break your leg or not? And as I was exploring this was a relatively simple question. But as I found out during the rest of the day that I investigated this, sometimes the answer is not that simple. Especially because Metal Gear Solid Delta is a complex game, there's lots of platforms you can play it on, and especially for the speedrun.com website, where we list all our world record timings, the rules, depending on the platform, change, and that also changes our approach. Because you see, yes, it is faster to catch yourself on the ledge. There's even multiple ways you can do that. You can either, after the codec, immediately roll over the ledge and then break your leg, or you drop over the railing, catch yourself in the middle one more time, and then drop to the bottom. And that is actually faster. However, I found out you can also do a roll over the first ledge and then catch yourself at the railing. However, that is slightly less fast. So while it looks cool, thankfully it's not as fast, because the risk is also you roll over the ledge and land in the middle of the sewers where you die. So yeah, good thing that just a simple method is also the fastest. Hold up, editing house just here. I just saw this clip about Mala Atman where when he went down to the sewers, he changed his FPS to 30. And I was wondering why he would do that. There's no advantage for that, right? Well, as it shows, this roll here gets you immediately to the middle layer instead of having you grab the railing at the top as you would do with 60 FPS. And as it shows, because console and PC both don't count the time as we on the pause menu to change FPS, this actually is the fastest way to go down these stairs. So without breaking your leg, you can do a roll forward, grab yourself in the middle instead of the top, and only need to fall down once without breaking your leg. And all you gotta do is quickly change from 60 to 30 FPS for that one little roll. Which solves a question. Should you break your leg? No, it's simply slower. But what if it's important to break your leg? Because you see, of course, in Metal Gear Solid Delta, there's also the rest of the speedrun to consider. And after the sewers, we have the encounter with the Sorrow. And now we have to differentiate between the two platforms that we can run on, either on console or on PC. Because you see, on console, the timing method is just IGT, the in-game timer that runs inside of the game. We simply read it out what it says at the end of the score screen of a run and report that back to the website. And the thing with the Sorrow is that the Sorrow's IGT is actually being deducted from the IGT. So the time you spent at the Sorrow in his little arena here does not count towards the IGT, because while time passes in this level, at the end, when you revive yourself with the revival pill, the time actually gets removed. It gets set back to the start of the arena, because it's all treated like a dream. And so if you're running a platform like console, where it doesn't matter how much time you spend in the Sorrow, it doesn't matter what you do. As long as you reach the fastest way there, you're good to go. Breaking your leg does not change, because it doesn't matter how quickly you finish yourself off here in the Sorrow's arena and then use the revival pill. And so once again solved, don't break your leg. But on PC, we use load removed real time, or LRT. The load removed real time does count what happens in the Sorrow, and it matters here how much time you spent in this arena. So what's the fastest way to continue? There's multiple approaches here, and from the past we learned, if you have to run in a real-time setting, you use the handkerchief. In case you didn't know, because the Sorrow's arena is in a river, if you fall asleep in there, you will instantly drown and lose all your health. So using the handkerchief and just waving it in front of you, you will fall asleep, knocking yourself off after 3 waves, and while you knock yourself out, you fall asleep, land in the water, and cannot continue because you instantly die. Great, use the revival pill and get off the arena and move on. Of course, the alternatives here are also to use just the RPG, which we already grabbed in Mountains too, because we want to save on some of the menus, which is again a thing we did in the past with original Metal Gear Solid 3, where menus would delay us a lot. Here, depending on the difficulty, you need a certain amount of RPG rockets in order to continue. You need 5 on Very Easy, or 2 on European Extreme. However, if you break your leg, for example, on European Extreme, you only need 1. So breaking your leg is worth it, question mark? Well, as it shows, if you just use 2 rockets, or even just 1 rocket, yes, the RPG is faster. The handkerchief is not really a useful item here on European Extreme. And, as I later found out thanks to Sensi, it's actually worth it once you escape the cell, and you have to do it, of course, without an alert, Or to continue on European Extreme, you can just put on the cigar and throughout the entire segment as you run through these levels without being detected, will take from the cigar enough damage even if you don't break your leg, so that you just need one RPG rocket at the Zorro, saving the quickest time here. And not needing to break your leg anymore. So don't break your leg. Great, now we have an answer for that. But what about very easy, the other difficulty that a lot of people also run? It's the opposite end of European Extreme, and of course there you have a lot more health. You need a lot more rockets. Like I said, on very easy, you need 5 RPG rockets to continue. If you break your leg, does it change anything? As I found out, because very easy heals you so quickly, no. Unless, thanks to Sir Schmuckle pointing that out, if you put on the cigar, you don't heal that fast anymore. Actually, you hurt yourself a little bit more. Actually, then you heal yourself on very easy. Great! But do I need to break my leg? So I spent another half hour just to figure out, okay, what's the timing here? What's faster? Should I do just the escape segment with the cigar on or not? Is the extra menu worth it? It's already equipped, so just one left press on the D-pad and then quickly equip the cigar. Do I then also need to break my leg? Thankfully, it turns out I don't. However, it helps, of course. So in this example run here, I got actually knocked over by the shield guard in the second room, which is something you usually try to avoid, but he gives us a good amount of damage. And I would argue this is definitely faster rather than breaking your leg. Because as you can see here, if you actually escape here without the shield guard in the second room, and I don't quite understand yet how this works, but if you don't have the shield guard pushing you over, you don't take enough damage. You should break your leg in the sewers to have enough damage taken so you save 1 RPG. But if you're like me and the shield guard appears, you take enough damage from the shield guard. So, should you break your leg? It depends. And the thing is also, I asked Mala, like, hey, how do you manage that the guard doesn't appear? And he says, oh, I just pray. I don't know. So there's a little bit of randomness there. And so, yeah, it really depends. If the guard appears and pushes you over, you take that damage. Fair enough. Don't need to break your leg. If the guard does not appear, then, yeah, you probably want to break your leg still, even on VE, just to take enough damage to save that 1 RPG, because that, again, saves you more time rather than not doing that. So with the cigar equipped, this little push happening, and of course, the ability to then not break your leg, which makes it overall faster. If you do all that, then you also take enough damage that you need to use 1 less RPG. 4 instead of 5. So don't break your leg. Well, again, here's the thing. We can do multiple things here. Getting a handkerchief is quite a task, but one task that we can actually do quite fast. So let's investigate where we can get the handkerchief. The handkerchief in Medical Solid Delta, and of course Medical Solid 3 as well, is in 2 locations. One is in the lab, in one of the lockers to the most left, and one is in the 𝐺𝐻 weapons lab underneath the table, right where you also drop off Raikov. So let's time it out. How much time does it take at most, when you're really optimized and experiment a little bit, to grab the handkerchief? Well, as I found out, if you just drag Raikov on the very easy difficulty and then get a handkerchief, you lose roughly 6 seconds. Not great. And I timed it out. If I do everything correctly in the lab, if I get the handkerchief quickly there, like fully optimized with good movement, or at least halfway decent movement, I also lose roughly 6 seconds. So it depends on your route and your feeling. Of course, in any percent right now where we skip the lab, we can't get the handkerchief there. But maybe, as I said, it's still worth it getting the handkerchief in 𝐺𝐻. And a little side note, don't know if we'll ever use the Cig Spray, but I also routed out on at least very easy if it's worth getting the Cig Spray as well, or only the Cig Spray if you don't go for it. So here's all the timings, and now you know the fastest route to do it. One quick tip. It's really important that the guard in front of the door takes a step forward before you tranquilize him, because then he falls into the door, keeping it open, allowing you to quicker roll back out of the room again where that Cig Spray is. Oh yeah, by the way, the question why I looked at the Cig Spray is also because we had chemists come up with a strategy how to beat the boss with the Cig Spray. And there, it's also interesting. On very easy at least, it's sadly not faster. It does skip a CQC animation, but what runners like Sensei do, Mala Ottman, and even Mr. Dan right now, where they just use the easy gun, because it's allowed on very easy, and the stun grenade after 2 shots, we can just loop that over and over again. So we just need to do the initial counter CQC against the boss, and then finish the fight with a simple loop like that. But then again, on European Extreme, it's slightly different. At least right now, on European Extreme, there's lots of different variations being tested here by different runners. For example, Anthony MGS is currently also experimenting with a boss strategy utilizing the Cig Spray instead of any other method. So, of course, check out the wiki to see all the different variations if you want to check it out yourself, and hopefully soon we'll also have a better answer to know which strategies we should apply, for example, on the European Extreme difficulty. So, okay, overall, we lose 6 seconds if we get the handkerchief, but we also save a good chunk of time here using the handkerchief rather than the RPG. The handkerchief, on very easy, is still the fastest method to do this. And what is the end result? Well, like I said, grabbing the handkerchief costs you 6 seconds, but it beats also the fastest method here with the RPG by around 4 seconds. The handkerchief does not require you to break a leg, so don't break your leg. Well, that is actually not quite the result here that I had, because I found out, like I said, if you use the RPG, you can do one less menu, you can also do other ways to hurt yourself early enough, not even needing to break your leg, and then the RPG is almost a second faster. It really evens out, rather. So in conclusion, should you break your leg in Metal Gear Solid Delta when you go through the sewers? If you're running console, it's not worth it, save yourself the time. Go over the rating, catch yourself, and move on immediately. Perfect. If you're running on PC, it depends right now what you want to use, and especially what difficulty you're running on. In general, if you use the cigar during the escape sequence, you can damage yourself enough that you do save time, needing one RPG less. Doesn't matter if it's very easy or European Extreme. And there maybe, just because it's less clutter in the inventory, it's just worth it for comfort level to not grab the handkerchief, saving yourself that time and the menu later. But again, because you're running on PC, maybe the menu also does not matter, because you can just quickly use the mouse to put everything up in your equipment and be done with that. So, while it's a little bit not satisfying for me right now that I can give you the definitive answer to this question, at least we know a little bit more. And I hope you out there also know a little bit more. Thank you everyone for watching, and happy running. Catch you in another video.